Welcome to Coddiwompling Along The Tao with Noel Eastwood, and this is episode 9, and I'm talking about the Empress and the Emperor from the Fool's Journey Through the Tarot, and I'm going to start off with a picture of the Empress. So here she is. Let me just make that a bit bigger. And this comes from the Visconti Scorzi deck around the late 1400s, one of the very earliest that we still have available that we can examine. And if we go in close, you can see that this is absolutely beautiful. And I'll just try and move that across a bit more. So this gold paint, gold leaf, we have the crown, and that's an empress. We got the Holy Roman eagle, or it could be the Frankish Germanic eagle. We have a crown here, we have some plants. Don't know what sort of plants they are, but that's basically it. It's this beautiful, beautiful empress. And at the time of the creation of these cards, of the tarot, there were still emperors and empresses of the Holy Roman Empire. Mind you, the Roman Empire ended in 1400s AD, somewhere in there. But the Holy Roman Empire continued with the Pope appointing or anointing rulers as emperors to protect the Holy Roman Empire. So that's a very early one. This, of course, is the Marseillaise in mid to late 1700s, in the 18th century. We have crown, we have the scepter, of course there's the church influence. The Empress has the eagle, and she is the Empress. And here we have plants. So she's not got it on her dress. We've got, perhaps that's a moon. And you know, if you want to, you can go through and delineate every little shape. I don't do that. You'll notice in all the work that I do with the tarot, it's the person I'm after. I'm not going to spend all my time trying to delineate every single detail, because it's actually not how I operate. In all the work that I do, it's the personality. What does it represent? I want to know that person, because it's a person that I want to be able to communicate with them in my inner work. And finally, we have the Waite Rider Coleman Smith deck, based on Waite's work with the Freemasons and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and he's incorporated quite a few things. Eliphas Levi introduced a tiara with the 12 stars, and that's representing the 12 signs of the Zodiac. That was 1855. So if you look here, we're not seeing a lot of the original, are we? Mind you, people can argue, and we're all open to interpretations. But what we're seeing here is a more fertile, more alluring and attractive, mature feminine form. We've got the river, we've got the forest and trees, we've got the sheaves of wheat, we've got Aphrodite, and we've got Persephone with the pomegranates. And she's on a fairly typical ancient Rome seat. It's not necessarily a throne. It's more in ancient Rome that, remember, they leaned on things. They lay down on couches a lot. They just relaxed. They had time to do that. They were lucky. We have, looks like Venus symbols in there, as we have here. Instead of the eagle, we've got the Venus symbol. And of course she's got her scepter there as well. So we have a very feminine form there, and very much Ceres, Demeter, goddess, we could say. Now in my story of the Empress, she is teaching Follin the Fool, this little fellow over here, on his journey through life to find his own power. So he's been to the magician, who gave him the 4 cornerstones of Western magic, earth, air, fire and water, with the pentacles, the sword, the cups and the wand. And then he's moved on to the High Priestess. And because the High Priestess represents intuition, she's teaching him to be quiet, to seek solitude within and silence, internal silence, to quiet his internal dialogue, to hear. She whispers a lot and she comes to him in dreams. So he's learning to slow things down, to go slowly, to go gently, which most of us just can't do, and it's a good lesson to do. With the Empress, she's teaching him leadership and rulership by learning that self-discipline yourself, and she's doing it by embodying it within him, and he's learning to do that through his circle walking and his centering through the navel. Now I'm going to explain that a bit more because this is my background. And here we have a fellow doing circle walking, which is what Follin learns to do. Circle walking is part of martial arts, the Kung Fu internal martial arts, where you're feeling and centering and generating your life force for rapid movement and mastery of your energy body as well as mastery of your physical body. And this is a lovely thing. When I learnt it, it was in a backyard and we walked in circles and we would have the forms and we would move in the forms in our way. Then we would put down bricks, just flat bricks, and we would walk on them, being very careful not to twist our ankle. It takes a lot of self-discipline to do that. It's not easy. So you actually have to slow down and quiet the mind. So you can see the Empress's influence here is to teach you just to slow down, to bring your mind into your body, because you've got to sense that brick, because you're not looking down at your feet, you're looking into the center, which is what you're supposed to be doing. And so the bricks are flat, then as you get better you turn them on the edge, which means it's a little bit harder to do because they're less space to walk on and you can fall over easier. And then when you get better you stand them up on their edge, so there's an even smaller spot to stand on and very easy to fall off. And finally it is you lay down a trail of sand about 4 inches high with cloth over it. I never got to this stage, so please don't think I'm a master of this. But the idea is that they would walk on that and not squash it down too much. And when they got good at that, then they would take the cloth off and then they would walk on the pile of sand without leaving footprints. Now my teacher Simon Lim, when he studied martial arts in Indonesia, he said some of his students would jump from the ground to the top of the fence, which would be about 6 foot, which in anyone's book that's pretty impressive, and they would do their walking along the top of the fence. He said some of the students could leap 18 feet, which is extraordinary, and I have no reason to think that it was otherwise. Here is a traditional Taoist environment for starters, very lean, very stark, very functional, and that's Taoism, is very functional. This, over generations, this circle walking would wear a path in there, and over generations you would have to take out those stones and replace them. But here's someone doing their circle walking. This is very much a Taoist, Buddhist martial arts technique at the highest level of training, where your walking is a meditation and your movements are spontaneous. Now this one, I wanted to show you this video and I actually won't run the video. I want you to go and look it up yourself if you're interested. It's called Historical Body Mechanics Walk Medieval. So go onto YouTube and this guy will walk you through. And basically what he's saying is that in medieval times they didn't have the shoes like we have. Like, you can look at this guy, he's got shoes on, of course, they're leather shoes, but with thin soles, you can't walk on your heels. It would jar your back and you're out of balance. When you're doing your sword fighting training or your quarterstaff training or any form of training, dancing, you're on the balls of your feet. And that's the walking that the Empress is teaching Follin, to walk on his whole foot. Now, that's what I do when I go for my walks. I do this, an hour's walk of walking whole foot. Not heel, then toe, but the whole foot. Now what it does, it changes your posture. It changes the movement of your life force, your energy through your body. It will even change your dreaming. So it is actually very, very powerful, and it's something that I wanted to put into the books, because you'll notice that I'm not all that interested in fantasy magic. I want real magic that you embody and you do yourself. This is why all the exercises that they do are things that we can do as human beings today in the real flesh, not in a fantasy world. But you need that self-discipline. So the Empress teaches Follin to center and to walk, because it changes the center point, it changes your energy flow, and it makes you stronger. The Emperor, and here we have the Emperor from, again, the Visconti Sorzi deck, and he's got his bauble, he's got his scepter, and he's got his crown, Emperor's crown with the eagle. Just have another one here. And that's the Emperor. We move forward to the mid-17, late 1700s, and he's a little bit more stylized. This is a Marseille deck. We've got the church influence, of course. He's a crown like a king, and there's it could be the Roman Empire's eagle, or it could be the Germanic or the Frankish emperor's symbol, because the emperors, even though the Roman Empire crumbled in the 400 AD, sometime around there, the center of the Holy Roman Empire, the Christian Empire, was still Rome. And even though there were emperors in Byzantine, in Istanbul, the Eastern Roman Empire, there were also at times popes in France and in Spain. And the Roman Pope would crown an emperor, one of the kings of those regions. And at this time, the emperors were Germanic, Frankish kings or dukes that were crowned as Holy Roman Emperors to protect the Holy Roman Empire. The last emperor was, can't remember his name, but that was the late 1400s in Byzantine, in Istanbul. The last Roman emperor to be crowned by a Roman Pope was in the 400s. Now we move to the Arthur Edward Waite's version, strongly influenced by the Freemasons and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And we have the influence now, he's added in the Aries symbol of the ram, and he's a medieval knight, and he's got the ankh of the Egyptian afterlife. He's got a crown and a beard, so he looks very, very Western, very European medieval knight. Now, what does he teach? He's teaching Follin external centering, external power, and that's with people. He's teaching Follin to learn to negotiate and be part of finding boundaries with other countries, with other organizations. In business, can be applied in relationships, So he's teaching him about finding the balance or the center of relationships. So the Empress is teaching him about finding balance within himself, very passive, and there are very specific exercises for him to do. And that changes your internal centering and your internal power and your internal balance. With the Emperor, he's teaching Follin or mentoring Follin in negotiations for finding that external balance in negotiations and relationships. And that's what he does. He is the mentor for Follin's relationships in the external world as a leader. Here we go. I just wanted to show you these two pictures because they're a little bit clearer, and yeah, they look pretty cool. There's the High Priestess, and what do we have? The Magician, and there's the Fool himself. There's a lot of websites with these pictures, so check them out. But see how things have changed over 500, 600 years. Now here we have the Emperor in terms of what we can understand. Sun Tsu, I think, was like 300 BC or something. Hang on, have I got it here? 544 BC. So that's what's that? 2,500 years ago. It's a long time ago. But he basically said that if you learn the art, and we call it the art of war, but he's saying if you learn the art of negotiation, the art of conflict, then you have a greater chance of success in life, of living life. And we have authors today that have taken Sun Tzu's writings and applied them to business, to relationships, to health, to anything you can think of. And they're worth reading, very much worth reading. Basically, Sun Tzu says, if you go into battle and you know you're going to lose, don't. Just don't turn up. And what we say today is, choose your battles. It's the same thing. If you know you're going to lose, don't fight that battle. Walk away. So this is the Emperor. The Emperor is teaching Follin to find the means of managing you and your army. And the army being your resources. Just another word for resources. Sun Tzu talks about morale and looking after the health of your people, of learning and studying your opponent to understand them. There's many, many lessons here of Sun Tzu that are super valuable for us living our life today. So I thoroughly recommend you do some reading on Sun Tzu, because that is the Emperor. The Emperor's external application of internal balance and harmony. Another way of looking at it is, again, we go back to Tai Chi and Kung Fu, and this is pushing hands or pushing body. There's two words for it. And what these girls are doing is they're standing still, so their feet are rooted to the ground. They're centered in the navel, and they are concentrating on this point here. That is the point of contact. It could be the point of conflict that we have in life. And so these girls are slowly moving around in a circle, maintaining the same amount of pressure all the time at this point. Now, if one of these girls pushes a bit hard, the other one will back off, but maintain the same amount of pressure. If one eases off and doesn't apply as much pressure, the other will move forward and maintain it. Now, if one becomes too pushy, the other one moves away, and that person will fall over. So in life, if you're too demanding, and this is a metaphor for life, when you become too demanding, that person can suffer. So if this person tries to push back and this one is stronger, this one will crumble and suffer. This one dominates. The other way is if this one becomes too passive and pulls back and pulls back and pulls back, this one can easily overcome this one. So in other words, if you don't meet your relationships in the midpoint, then you pull back. You're expecting them to do too much for you. You become needy. You become demanding. You want. That's out of balance. If you become too pushy, then you're dominating and becoming overbearing. So this is teaching at a metaphysical level to find the balance point, to find those boundaries. And in my work with people in relationships, I would do a lot of boundary work. I would talk to them about setting boundaries. And to set boundaries, you need to understand, why do I need boundaries? Where do I need the boundaries? And how do I set them? Boundaries is all about that rock and water, which is in my newsletter, in one of my newsletters. Rock and water, the rock of course is hard, and the water of course is soft. So we got the metaphor for the Empress and the Emperor, water and rock. And those two archetypes, if I can find where that picture is, these two archetypes represent the rock and the water, the passive and the active. And they're both about mentoring, relationships, negotiating and compromise. And that's all about leadership, whether that be the leadership within yourself or the leadership within your relationships. So that's what I was after in writing about the Emperor and the Empress in the Fool's Journey, and something that you can apply. But the Empress is about applying it to yourself, and that's a really good start. Do it with your walking. Can't get any easier than that. Well, thanks for being with me again, and Coddiwompling. And my next presentation will be the 3 psychic houses in astrology, the 4th house, the 8th house, and the 12th house. And I hope that will be a bit of a nice one for you. And thank you very much.